I just wanted to go back to the session work because I'm really intrigued because I've done a few sessions, but I always was wondering like what you need gear wise to be fully prepared to do any, because sometimes you're going to show up and you're really not going to know if it's going to be a jazzy session, a rock session, a blues session, a soul session.
Well, the thing about Jingles in Chicago, it was as much about being fast and getting your sound fast than it being great. I mean, I heard stories about, I won't mention any names, about great session players, R&B session players in particular, who wound up on some sessions in Chicago, and they were famous for a lot of famous parts they'd done on big records that had sold millions of copies. But the interesting comment I got from a lot of the producers was it took forever for them to get their part together and to get their sound together. Yeah. They were so impressed with Chicago guitar players who, if you had to come in there with it right away. The downside of that is that it's a trade-off, because there's something to be said for taking your time to get a great sound.
Sure.
But that just wasn't economically feasible doing jingles, and there wasn't a lot of record work here, where in LA there was both. So you had guys who could take a little more time to get their sound. And I read guitar player, and I read about guys who bring just cartage, trucks of stuff, and they're ready for anything that hits them, and they can do anything. I wasn't that guy. But I first started out with those hot wired Strat and Telly with a rack full of processing, going through a Boogie Mark III. And a lot of times it would get taken direct and off the speaker. And then as they started sort of clamping down on exorbitant cartage charges and technology arrived, I think then I transitioned to, I had a speaker simulator called the Power Tool, and a tube preamp that I would run in the Power Tool, and maybe I had a Korg effects processor in between. I did that for a while, and then eventually I went to like a Pod XT Pro, and I did the Pod, and I still use the Pod for sessions. I've been doing a lot of sessions lately. The jingle business has sort of dried up, but I've been at Jim Peterick's house from Ides of March and Survivor. He lives out in the south suburbs.
Wrote Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah, Eye of the Tiger and Hold On Loosely and Vehicle, and he's a cool guy. He's a real rock star, and I just love going there. And he's got one of the most unbelievable guitar collections in the world. I mean, he's got them on display everywhere, and it's just amazing.
Wow,
it's amazing.
Can you take me there sometime, Richie?
Yeah.
I know Jim. He's been here.
Cool. Yeah, it's cool.
He plays with Harry Shearer. Harry Shearer does his holiday show here. And Jim's always a special guest.
Yeah.
Cool. So you were talking about your wah-wah earlier. Tell me about your favorite and most used pedals.
Well, most of the sessions I do, I just get whatever I need from the Pod, and I've learned to try to rely on. I feel more comfortable now with as little effects as possible. But some songs really call for it, certain things. But right now with my live rig, I have a couple pedals that I just keep on all the time. I've got an exotic RC booster that I use because my thought is that when you have all those pedals, you lose some of the tone as it snakes through all that crap, And so what I'd like to do is I just plug my guitar right into the amp just to kind of get a baseline of what things should sound like. And then when I plug back into my pedal board, I use different boosters in different places in the pedal board to sort of bring it back to where it needs to be when all the effects are aligned. So the RC booster is a great transparent pedal to do that with. You can use it as overdrive, but I use it just as sort of a compensator. And then I've got, they have another pedal called I just bought called the EP booster, which is the circuit that apparently a lot of the rock guys used to use an Echoplex just as a preamp without the echo, because they just dug what it did to the tone. So there's a little box, I use that. I use a Demeter compressor, sort of keep things where they need to be. And then I have, I mix and match stuff. I have an Ibanez multi-effect pedal called a PUE tube that's got a tube king, a vintage tube screamer, a delay and chorus in it. And it's not programmable, but you can select groups and assign them. So if you want, like, you choose to have the delay and the chorus and the tube screamer on, that could be sound 1 and so on. You can pick and choose, or you can just have them just be like pedals. So those are my main boxes.
All right. Let's see, what was I just going to ask you about? Oh yeah, I just wanted to talk about the first subject. Your brother, Andrew Davis, prominent Hollywood film director, he's made movies like Under Siege and The Fugitive and The Guardian, and you've been in a couple of those. I remember seeing you in Under Siege with our mutual friend Tad Robinson.
Right.
He's the machine gun yielding lead singer with Steven Seagal. So
that was a great experience because in that movie, on the set and in the band in the movie was Hiram Bullock, who I always been a huge fan of, and was a really cool guy. And there's been a few famous guitar players that I've been actually able to work with, and he's one of them. He was really cool, and I can talk about a few others if you want.
Sure. Let's talk a little about the movie making experience and playing on movie sets for.
Yeah, playing on movie sets, it was kind of familiar to me because when we made Stony Island, I was 19. I got the whole thing of it's a lot of hurry up and wait, and then I'm really so impressed with great film actors. Not that I'm not impressed with stage actors, I am as well, but they have to turn it on and turn it off so many times and from so many different angles. It's really amazing, because it's not like a live performance.
Right.
Where you get into it and you're there and you see the destination and you go for it. This is all in little short takes, but it's fun. It's fun being the band on the set. We did that in The Guardian as well.
Yeah. And unlike this, which is all being shot 100% live.
Absolutely.
You were The Guardian as well. The band in the back of the bar.
Right. Oh, you saw it.
That was some good blues. I actually enjoyed that music.
And the best thing about that was that club belonged to James Burton, who most guitar players know who that is. And he was another just sweetheart and just couldn't have been more gracious. Yeah. And we jammed and he showed me stuff and it was really cool. And we still stay in touch.
Yeah. Have you seen him on Spectacle? Elvis Costello has a musical
I heard about
show
that.
on
I heard
Sundance.
about that. Okay.
And James was in the house band for a while with Alan
cool.
Toussaint.
It was cool with James, and because all the stuff he's famous for, all his, banjo rolls and all the quintessential, Bakersfield, Nashville kind of stuff that he's great in, the early rock and the whole bending of strings and all that kind of stuff. But we, at a club, sat in with at a hotel. When we were filming, we sat in. We took over the house band, like at the Holiday Inn, and jammed. And he came up there, and we were doing like a Rufus thing or something, and we gave him a solo. And he was, man, you could see why he was James Burton because it didn't faze him at all. He just totally did his thing, and it was perfect. It was really impressive. And I also got to work with. The guy was a big hero of mine, although he was sort of a salty character, but I understand from people who know him that he actually did like me, but I would never have known that if they hadn't have told me. But Eric Gale, who's did all the session work with Paul Simon and millions of people. Not to be confused with Eric Gales. This is Eric, Mr. Magic and all that stuff. We did. They did a comic relief salute to Michael Jordan in 1991 at the Chicago Theater, and they brought in L.A., New York, heavy hitters. And Tom Scott was the musical director, but they picked up 3 players here, and I got to be one of them. And he was the other guitar player, so that was a great experience to work with him. And in the early session days, Claff and Weinstein, who had a jingle house, they would fly in Jeff Skunk Baxter and Elliot Randall. Yeah. And I got to do a few sessions with them. And there's also a guy named Ira Siegel who I did a session with one time who played on a lot of Kashif stuff and Evelyn Champagne King. And as a New York session guy, Gavin Christopher flew me and a buddy out to New York and we played on a Grandmaster Flash album in 1983.
Cool.
And he was on that.
Richie mentioned Skunk Baxter and Elliot Randall were probably most famous for their sessions with Steely Dan. Yeah, that's heavy stuff. Could you talk about some of your sessions with people like Mavis Staples and the Impressions?
Yeah, the Impressions, they weren't there, so that wasn't as profound. But some of the sessions were the Gladys Knight session. We did Midnight Train to Georgia. It was just me, her, and about 5 guys singing background.
Wow.
And it was just, that was all it was. It was really cool. And no one's got a copy of that. I want to get a copy of that.
What did you play on that?
I played the Strat.
Yeah.
I played the Strat. And I was like, while I'm playing, I'm just sort of, there's a little voice where you go, I can't believe I'm doing this right now.
Yeah.
And then some other cool people that like Bobby Womack. This is all related to Tom Joyner. Bobby Womack. He was really cool because I knew he was a great guitar player too.
Mm-hmm.
And he came down and he was fun. I worked with Bo Diddley a couple times live.
Yeah.
He was cool. Mavis Staples came down it was part of the Tom Joyner thing we did.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool. Tom Joyner was in Dallas, and in those days it was an ISDN connection, and we were like, it was 6 a.m, and it was live.
Yeah.
And we did also was J.T. Taylor, the guy, the most recognizable voice from Kool and the Gang. We did stuff with him there, and quite a few other people. It was good.
Cool.